In a world that reacts quickly and forgets slowly, I want to begin somewhere different. Not with headlines and not with outrage, not with commentary, but with a quieter question. Who are we becoming while we live through all of this? There's a heaviness in the air lately. Exposure feels constant. Trust feels fragile. Conversations feel sharper. And many thoughtful, principled people feel something they don't always have words for. Anxiety, disorientation, a quiet temptation towards cynicism. If that's you, you're not alone. Hi, I'm Marcie Gourley. Welcome to Better Angels of Our Nature.
Mug on the table, rain on the glass. You've been holding your breath, trying to get past the past. Better angels of our nature, sit down, stay a while. We'll name every shadow till it loosens its bite. Better angels of our nature, in the hurt, in the heart, finding room for a softer heart. Right here.
So why does this podcast exist? I'm a counselor. I sit every day with people who care deeply about their families, their faith, their country, their integrity. Good people are becoming exhausted, not because they don't believe in truth, but because they're drowning in noise, clanging gongs of outrage, rhetoric, and opinions. They don't want to disengage. They don't want their hearts to harden, but they don't know how to stay steady either. This podcast exists for that middle space, for the person who's anxious but principled, who believes in hope but feels it thinning, who wants to stay grounded without becoming naive. I don't speak from a place of having mastered steadiness. I speak as someone practicing it, because I need it too. So let's talk about middle space faith. I'm a Christian. But I also know what it feels like to live in the middle, to love Christ deeply and still carry wounds from church spaces and people's spaces, to believe in grace and still know what rejection feels like, to want to offer hope while holding pain of your own. I'm not here representing an institution. I'm here as a woman of faith who has learned that hope is rarely loud. It is often small, sometimes mustard seed small. But small hope can still be strong, especially when it is chosen deliberately. The problem we're facing right now is not just political or cultural. It is internal. Our nervous systems were not designed for perpetual scandal. We were not meant to absorb moral violation at the pace of scrolling thumbs. When exposure becomes constant, something happens inside of us. We tighten, we brace, we assume the worst. And cynicism begins to feel intelligent. It sounds like clarity. It feels protective, but it quietly isolates. And over time, it corrodes action. If nothing is trustworthy, why try? If everyone is compromised, why engage? Cynicism masquerades as wisdom, but it builds nothing. So here's what I want to suggest. In an age of outrage, hope is an act of rebellion. Not naive hope, not denial, not pretending evil doesn't exist. It clearly does. I'm talking about disciplined hope. Hope that says, I see what is broken and I refuse to let it break my character. Hope that says, I will not become what I oppose. I will not live in a space of cognitive dissonance because I feel myself compromising my values of love, joy, peace, patience and forbearance, kindness, goodness, gentleness, meekness, and self-control for the sake of justice. That would defeat justice's purpose. And yet more and more, that is the space I am finding people in. I want us to have a hope that steadies the nervous system instead of inflaming it. Hope that protects what is sacred in the interior life. This kind of hope is not loud. it is practiced. There's a reason this podcast is called Better Angels of Our Nature. The phrase comes from Abraham Lincoln's first inaugural address in 1861. Let me set the stage. The country was splitting apart. States were seceding from the Union. Newspapers were inflamed. Trust in leadership was fractured. The possibility of war was no longer abstract. It was imminent. And in that moment, Lincoln, newly elected, did something remarkable. He did not deny the conflict. He did not pretend the tension wasn't real. But instead of appealing to fear or dominance, he appealed to something higher. He spoke of the better angels of our nature.
I am loath to close. We are not enemies, but friends. We must not be enemies. Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic cords of memory stretching from every battlefield and patriot grave to every living heart and hearthstone all over this broad land will yet swell the chorus of the Union, when again touched, as surely as they will be, by the better angels of our nature.
Lincoln believed that even in a divided nation, something in us could still be called upward. Not perfection, not uniformity, but conscience. That line wasn't sentimental. It was defiant. It was an assertion that we're not doomed to our worst impulses, and every generation faces the same question. Will we be governed by our fear and outrage, or will we call forward something steadier? That question is not only national, it's deeply personal. Let me offer you something practical to carry into this week. Before reacting, online, in conversation, in your own thoughts, pause. Take 3 slow breaths. Then ask, who am I becoming in this moment? Is this building something or corroding something? What would steadiness look like right now? That small interruption changes the trajectory of the day. That is not dramatic. That is formative. Some of us know what it feels like to be misunderstood, to feel caught between extremes, too much for one camp, not enough for another. But what if we didn't need a pedestal? What if we just needed a room? This podcast is not a platform. It is a room, a place for thoughtful people to practice steadiness together. You don't have to be certain here. You don't have to be loud here. You don't have to be perfect here. You just have to be willing to choose hope, even if it's mustard seed small. History is shaped not only by leaders and headlines, but by ordinary people who refuse to harden. People who remain principled without becoming harsh. People who choose disciplined hope in complicated times. If you've been feeling anxious, but still principled, if you've been tempted towards cynicism, but don't want to live there, if your hope feels small, but still alive, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll slow the pace. We'll look at emotional and spiritual health, uncover moments in history that teach us, and build everyday courage. We'll practice steadiness together. Until next time, let's hold steady and call our better angels forward. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, please remember to comment, share, and subscribe. And also, my book, 250 Great Things About America, will be debuting April 21st, 2026, and pre-orders are active now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever you find great books online.